Hello, it's Andy Chalef here,
And Charles Bambos Dimitriou.
and we will be unpacking anger on
A
A
wonderful
Chaos.
chaos.
Hello, welcome to another beautiful day in Amsterdam.
Yeah.
Um,
How are you?
I'm good.
Yeah.
I'm good. Actually, it was interesting. This was, I'm pretty enjoying the process of doing the shows and feeling very kind of spontaneously excited. But this show, I felt sort of a crunch in my stomach.
I wonder why.
Well, I felt it because I realized that I didn't want this to be a discussion about anger. And,
definitely not.
and I know you, by your nature as well, would maybe even push the boundaries of what may be appropriate for a viewing public, right?
Yeah.
Because in some ways, the two of us have had to overcome so much anger towards us that's been our own challenge. So I thought to myself, wow. So when we go through this process today, which as people may or may not know, we don't plan out anything before we get here. So we actually decide that we're going to dedicate to a subject matter and allow it to evolve.
Yeah.
And that means that it can go in ways that we also aren't necessarily even prepared for.
Yeah.
Right.
But because we kind of know each other, we can trust each other,
Yeah.
but we can never control how our viewers might project onto us.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. For sure. And there was something that I thought I really would love to begin the program another way today. And I thought, as we're discussing the topic of anger, and neither of us is an authority on anger. It's not like we're doctors or we're practitioners of anger management. We just have our own experience of what we had to overcome. And I thought, wow, wouldn't it be beautiful to share not only the conceptual experience of the anger, but honest, real moments when people kind of understood what we had to deal with as children.
Yeah.
Yeah.
When I hear you say that, it almost brings the birth of a tear.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I see it. And I thought, I don't know if you want to begin or I begin, either one, since I'm laying this quickly at your doorstep and we didn't discuss it, like I have no issue beginning. It's just a question of how you'd like to proceed.
I also would just want to add that just before we got on, I was about to ask him questions or to make suggestions. And I realized, let's just figure it out as soon as we go live.
Yeah.
Like that's...
Of course.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's always more interesting. How is it for you to do that?
I feel openness to that.
Yeah. So when I look at my journey at anger, it's funnily enough not all that dissimilar from my journey with my mom's death. Right, my mom was killed by the drunk driver, and that happened when I was at a young age. And when I aged, I began to conceptualize the experience, talk about it, but not be present in it. Like relativize it so that the pain wasn't as deep, but the pain never really went away. So I felt like, in some weird way, I overcame this because I could talk about it without crying. When I didn't actually overcome it, I just made it so that it was less painful. It was manageable.
Yeah.
So anger, and my father's anger specifically towards me as a kid, was actually no different. In that way that I began to conceptualize his anger for a lot of years and then separate from it and not feel what its impact was for me. Yeah, and tell stories, of course. But now I get to the reality. So I think of in the house, I would tiptoe up the stairs as a kid because dad worked from home, and I'd always be scared that he'd hear me. Because if he'd hear me, he would often just yell for no apparent reason and just bring me into his office and start screaming. And I remember specifically when I was, it was I think about 6 to 8 months before I graduated from 8th grade, and I was at his house, and he, mom was Catholic and dad was Jewish, and that was always a really big deal because he didn't like the values that the Catholic Church was bringing into whatever he considered our lives. So in some degree, I think all of the anger that he had towards my mom and seeing the behavior that he recognized in us made him really angry. It was like, I can't identify with my kids. In fact, he said that to me many times. I can't identify with you. You're not, I don't see you as my child.
Like as you're speaking,
Yeah.
how are you feeling?
I feel into it. Yeah, I'm trying. That's exactly what I'm in feeling into that feeling. Why do you ask that question?
Oh, because I'm feeling the emotions myself.
Yeah.
And I'm wondering, how is it for you?
I'm feeling into it. I'm getting to the core one, which is, I mean, I just said, let's make sure I brought tissue paper up today because I thought let's keep it real. So let's let that be whatever it was meant to be. And because in some ways, you know how I like to operate in life. I want to be able to feel into each emotion and not make it true or real, but allow that also to be part of me. That's the beauty of life, is experience all the emotion.
Yeah.
And not pushing it away, or I'm beyond that now. It doesn't make it me. It's just also a part of me.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Love it.
So I remembered like the most dramatic kind of memory for me because of the age was I was in 8th grade, or about a half a year from graduation. And my dad brought us around the table. It was a round table. I remember it really well, probably like a meter and a half round.
Mm-hmm.
And we all sat there, and it was like he needed to discuss with us all of the things he wasn't happy with. Right. And somehow he brought to the table like an expectation that this might be a conversation which was going to be a loving conversation. So it's like I let my guard down. It was like, oh, he really wants to hear me, maybe for the first time. So he's like, we're going to talk, and I want to hear what you have to say, what you want to, what's going on for you guys. It was me and one of my brothers. And as I sat there, I said to him, and I remember the moment, he kept saying, what do you want from me? He said, what do you want from me? And then it was like this incredibly vulnerable moment. I said, I want you to be like my friend's dad. It was no intended, it was that most honest, pure, real thing that an 8-year-old could say. Right?
Wow.
And so I said that, and he exploded. Like he just lost it. So when I say lost, like he got up, like in a rage, not in no coherence, almost animal-like behavior. And he like grabbed me and my brother from the back of our shirts, and like he walked us to his front door and literally threw us out. Physically just threw us out the door. And my mom's house was some distance away, but we walked that. And all I did is this 13-year-old just felt like the one time that I was really going to take the risk to let someone know, like that I thought they wanted to know, and then share that, and then have that drastic reaction was like it just fear embedded the rest of my life, because vulnerability now equated to that anger. Yeah. And that was one of the many kind of stories in that realm. And then resentment came in because dad was this way with everyone. So what happened was, at my 8th grade graduation, I had to go to my dad at 13 years old and apologize to him for saying what I said, so that he then could come back into the fold, and we could begin our relationship again, as if it was my responsibility. Right. So dad's incapacity was always shoveled down to me, so that I then had to feel that his anger was now something I had to take responsibility for. Yeah. And that was all my whole life. I mean, there's hundreds of those stories. That's one of them. But I just remember it probably more so because as the 8th grader having to apologize for something that he, to have a 13-year-old take responsibility. At the time, I didn't really think about it. But in retrospect, it's like, who's the adult in that scenario? Yeah. So that was my life pretty much throughout my life. Thrown out of the house. We didn't talk for 10 years. One day he yelled at me and wrote me out of the will and said, "You're dead to me." That's it. A lot of that stuff. So that anger was something that I experienced a great deal in my life, and also put judgment to. Yeah. So that was my story. One of them. Yeah.
Yeah. There was a lot of rage in my household, but actually I don't want to talk about the rage in my household. Because I noticed a little bit more edgy would be to talk about the rage that was in me.
Okay. But can we do? I would love to know because it's in you.
Well, that was like the experience I had, the journey I had.
Yeah, but I'd love to get to that afterwards because in some ways, if it's okay,
Yeah.
like I really want to see how we feel it in our life. What's the context for our own anger? Like you were angry, but we could also say that probably didn't come out of nowhere.
No, definitely not.
So like it would be great to understand what was your reality before you had to deal with your own shit.
Wow. Yeah, sure.
Is that okay?
Yeah, it's perfect.
Yeah.
I said sure because I did a live yesterday where I talked about it already.
Oh, really?
So I have to relive it again.
Oh, wow. Okay. Well, I'll bring out probably my own tissue then.
So yeah, if I even want to start talking, it just feels like even a physical thing which is
Wow.
here.
Yeah. Hmm.
I feel a lot of resistance.
Really?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Was this my idea?
Yeah. Well, you said make it real, so this was the.
No, I mean, was it my idea to bring the subject?
Yeah, of course it was.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I guess the story itself, and the reason I'm crying is because I realized why it hurts.
Hmm. Do you want to move past this and go to another space, or how you feel? How would you like to proceed?
No, I can share. I was crying actually because I realized the little boy who who actually had to push himself.
Yeah.
I'm talking in a way that I think where I feel stuck right now is making these lives. I know my family watches them.
Oh, wow.
So I just want to make sure they don't feel blamed.
Yeah. Yeah.
I think that's the most difficult part that I love my family.
Yeah.
So I guess my father was a very unreasonable man, and he didn't really have, at least he had a good heart. I know that much from him, and he was actually during the British occupation in Cyprus. He was actually arrested. I think he was at the age of 9 or 10 because he was the mail boy. And if anyone knows everyone in a village, it's the mailman. So pretty much they tortured him for 2 months, I think. And my aunt said his sister shared with me that when he came out of this torture, they didn't recognize him.
Oh,
They literally deformed his face.
wow.
So he kind of lived some pretty horrific moments, and that innocent boy never came back. My aunt actually said that so much hate for the British that it drove him. So in our family, he was not always a reasonable person, and he would be more reactive than like sitting down to talk. So we could be doing mathematics, and if I didn't know something, I'd just get a really hard slap, or a beating, or shouting. So a lot of the times, that repetition really, it's like beating up a dog, and until the dog is walking around with his tail between his legs. And that was just, this story is just 10% of the experience.
Yeah.
Yeah. So at some point, my dad left when I was 15. And I really blamed myself that that when he left and we never heard from him again, I that was the point for me where I started to hurt myself.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I really looked for trouble. I looked for drugs. Didn't know what I was getting myself into, but that was the beginning of my journey.
How old were you then?
15.
15.
And that was the best way I could cope with everything that was happening, because we were not really talking about it.
Yeah.
And yeah.
When you, I'd love to sort of move back into our anger space now from there.
Yeah.
When you said you wanted to do anger as just a show, and do you have a recollection of what made you like want to do this subject for the hour this week?
It was during the Authentic Relating Games that we held in the building in real time. It was really a subject that a lot of people wanted to practice.
Yeah.
There's a thing called emotional Aikido, and how to, either you're someone that's not capable of expressing anger and you're just feeling choked, or you're someone that is reactive and you are so angry that you don't know how to give it a place.
So you're talking about kind of this paradox, the extremes of either I'm so free in my anger that I alienate, or I can't even begin to feel or express my anger, so I shut down.
Yeah.
Yeah. Fight or flight almost in that sense.
Yeah. And people have been asking for it, but how do I navigate an online workshop on anger and not be physically there with people to also support it? So then I thought this live would be perfect.
Yeah. Yeah. Discussing and practicing with sort of anger techniques, even how to manage it.
Yeah.
I mean,
well, not even manage.
I was going to say, yeah, because I would even want to say manage. When I said that, I heard myself like look to like more mindfulness practices. Because in some ways, I feel like mindfulness is one of those tools that one uses to ground a feeling or an emotion that's kind of in the almost subconscious area.
Yeah.
So yeah, not what would be the word you use for how you'd like to unpack it today?
I don't really have an answer for that, Andy, because on my journey...
Well, you said emotional Aikido, so I somehow thought that you already had some idea around that.
So we could actually, like, my brain was more, we could actually act it out between us.
Okay.
And then as we're moving through it, we can also talk about it.
Of course.
On what is actually happening, like, underneath.
Yeah, without a doubt.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That could be a way. but I wasn't sure. How is that for you?
I mean, it would be nice. I'd really want to do a lot of prepping for that for people that are watching.
Yeah.
So they understand that we're channeling some part of us that isn't us per se. It is also a part of us. Only because it could look outrageous to somebody that sees the rage and then isn't here with us to let it ground.
Yeah.
Because when we do that together, we'll do it in a space that we can actually interact with people.
Yeah.
And now
there's like a context.
There's a context that everyone can make sense of, and then they actually learn and grow from it. Otherwise, here they'd look at it if they just saw the clip, like, what the hell is going on there? This is just...
Well, as we're talking, and also I see people, 9 viewers, I'd also like to hear from people, what their struggles are with anger, what their relationship is with anger.
Yeah.
To make sure that whatever we bring on right now is...
Yeah. Something that we haven't really shared, and we haven't done that enough on the show, is that actually we're waiting for people to write in to share whatever things they have questions about or areas where they feel challenged in anger. And then we'll, of course, interact around those on between Bambos and myself.
Yeah.
And talk about where it's relevant to us as well.
And I'm quickly checking my Facebook.
Yeah.
Just to make sure that if there are comments that we see them.
Yeah, great.
And not that they're...
Yeah, some of the comments are going to different places at the moment.
Yeah.
So when I look at anger, I'd like to kind of progress to the next step till we do the Aikido work.
Yeah.
I've noticed that anger is judged more so than any other emotion I know.
Yeah. It's bad. It shouldn't be there.
It goes through...
my God, it happened again.
Yeah.
A lot of guilt.
A lot of guilt. And it works from the shaming of anger as well, because once you even subtly begin to see anger as a lesser emotion, then you'll say things or do things that are subtly making people feel it's not appropriate to be angry. So in some weird way, we distinguish between anger and violence, right? It's so easy to transition and say, if you're angry, you're violent, right? Or I feel attacked. And then claim victimhood over it because your anger is making me feel uncomfortable.
Like, I never want to be arrogant to assume. Like for me, I can tolerate a lot.
Yeah.
But for someone that's really sensitive, maybe for them it is violent.
Yeah, of course it is. No. But what I'm saying is that at that point, of course it's violent because we all get to decide how we experience it.
Okay, good.
Yeah, there's no in that this is not also experienced as violence, but the fact that it's now given a label automatically puts it in another category of how it can be dealt with. Because now we can't say you're angry and that's an issue. We're saying you're attacking me.
Yeah.
I have a problem with your anger is different than saying you're attacking me.
Exactly.
And that's the nuance, which is kind of important if we're in a relationship. Because as soon as it's you're attacking me, the mind shuts down and there's no access to actually try to create connection again. But when I say your anger is a problem, we can interact around that as much as we want, because I'll discover things about myself and I'll discover things about you, hopefully, in that process. Yeah. It's a nuance. It's that impersonal, personal, impersonal, personal.
Beautiful. Thanks for clarifying that.
Yeah, thank you for asking. Because I think it's important when you said it and I said it, I didn't necessarily think about the nuance that you had actually touched upon, which is that just because the anger comes out doesn't mean that it won't be experienced as violence from another person.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it often is. Let's agree on that.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think in my life, I think I've told you that I find sometimes the most love I ever receive is when someone's shouting at me. Because the amount of emotion they need to overcome and the vulnerability in that is so great that I'm seeing them pure. I'm seeing them as they are.
Yeah.
And it's not easy for people to allow that that kind of understanding to be present in themselves, because they guard themselves, as I did for most of my life, because of, in my own case, not wanting to be my dad.
Oh, that resonates with me too. I didn't want to be my dad.
Yeah. And what happened, and at least in my case, is in not wanting to be my dad, I actually became my dad.
Because you suppressed it.
Because I suppressed it. Oh, I remember every girlfriend. I think I told you, I called every girlfriend I ever had from like high school forward to apologize. And I didn't even know at that time necessarily the exact things I would be apologizing for, but I knew that the behavior was always in me, so they must have experienced it.
How old were you when you called them?
It would have been like 8 years ago.
Oh, wow. Recent.
Yeah, it was more recent. Yeah, it was after case. At some point I started to say, wow, these people have been experiencing me. And I'm guarantee that if I've made it this far and I see this behavior now, this behavior has always existed. So at least let me take responsibility with the people that it may have impacted. And it was really quite beautiful because each one of them shared the experience of me there. And even one of them thanked me for it because they said it helped them deal with other situations in their life because they could channel the anger that they saw in me, which I thought was kind of weird. I didn't quite know whether to take it as a thank you or like I know how powerful anger can be, and I used it. Right, someone was abusing somebody, and they said, no, I won't accept your abuse anymore, and they thanked me for that, which I thought sounded beautiful. And then at the same time, I wasn't quite sure what to make of it. Yeah, we have a
comment from Iris.
Iris.
I feel challenged around anger because I come from a very aggressive and violent culture, the way I perceive it. And when I grew up, I wanted to contain the anger and, like you said, feel shame and guilt around it. But then I realized it's important emotion and I need to address it as a tool showing me my values, for example.
Yeah.
Beautiful.
Yeah, it gets back to what we were saying earlier, because you're Iris. You call her Iris. Is that how do we pronounce her name?
I call her Iris.
Iris is going to be on the show in a few weeks, so we'll get to talk to her about how to pronounce her name as well. When she writes this, the culture, right? I also say the culture is also in our family upbringing is our culture.
Yeah,
there's a wider culture, but then there's the family culture. And when I think about like how I had to overcome it, like it was when I first began to understand that it was okay.
Yeah.
And I even remember like there was this the pendulum. You suppress, and then you flip to the anger. You get resentment, frustration, all that comes out, then bang. And I remember like right after I started to say I'm okay being angry. I remember the exact moment, and I had a call probably with someone that's watching right now, so I won't go into too much detail. But I was saying something weren't taking me into account at all. Like they weren't like, I said, hey, I would like this. And then it was like, yeah, but you should, that kind of thing. And I just let them have it. I might have suppressed it before and tried to find a way to make it more palatable. But I said, fuck you for judging me. Just bang, bang, bang. But it was like, it was the cleanest anger that I'd ever felt to that moment. It was like channeled anger. It wasn't reactive. It was also reactive, but it wasn't like primordial.
You weren't blind to it.
No. I was like, fuck you, and I don't want that shit in my life. No. And it was interesting because it was the first moment when I got to live the anger. And there was, of course, a flip because now I would never interact that way. But when you're learning to navigate anger, you also have the flip because you're like, wow, now I've got to feel what it feels like to express it. And you only learn from screwing up a little bit.
Yeah.
So yeah, that was one of these moments that I remember till today. And even the person mentions it sometimes as a moment for them as well. Yeah.
It's a beautiful gift.
Yeah.
So you mentioned you mentioned very briefly mindfulness, and I just want to say that during the course of me dealing with anger, I did go and stay in a Buddhist monastery.
Oh wow!
Where we didn't express anger, but every time there was a strong emotion, they would make us, or make me actually, because I was the only angry person there, apparently, to do walking meditation. I would walk for hours and hours and hours.
Really?
I can't say it helped. It just felt like it wasn't allowed to have that emotion.
So they've made you walk off the anger? Is that the kind
it's like right foot breathing in, left foot breathing out, like really, like with every breath one step, with every breath one step.
And how long did you do that?
I stayed there for a month.
Wow. And what did you find from that experience? What did you discover or learn by going through that?
Well, with any Buddhist practice, you learn to slow the fuck down.
Okay.
But it didn't really help me to come to grips or to find love towards anger.
Yeah. I mean, it's sort of, there's the softening of the thing, and then there's the embrace of the thing.
Yeah.
So there's those two sides, like I'm less of this and it's less of a problem, and then there's like I'm celebrating it and actually grounding it. And in some ways I see the paradox of, the making peace with the disappointment or the shame, and then celebrating the joy in it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'll often say that you and Joanne actually are the ones that really helped me, gave me that last push to fully embrace anger. But that's because you both have allowed that to be in your life.
Yeah.
So with the specific monks that I was working with, they were so gentle that I didn't feel that they had even the space for that emotion.
Wow. Yeah. I mean, in some ways, it's. I think that's the kind of thing we say when we're talking about holding space for other people. Like it's hard to hold space when you yourself haven't made peace with the thing that you're actually trying to help the other person with.
Yeah, probably you'll bleed into the interaction.
Yeah, especially if you have any judgment towards it. Iris comes back with something else that she shared with us.
My other challenge around anger is, like you said, I don't want to be perceived as threatening or violent to someone else. Don't want to hurt people, but also don't want to walk on eggshells.
That's a beautiful one, because this gets to the point you made earlier when you said, Andy, you may be in your anger, but that doesn't mean it won't be experienced as violence by somebody else.
Yeah, we have no control over that.
No control over that. And I've seen in my own life, because I didn't want to be, of course, my father, that for many years I didn't allow myself to be fully expressive. Let's call it that, because that's what the anger is. It's a full expression. Because I was scared that it might do something or make someone feel uncomfortable.
Yeah.
So interesting. And then the humor and the beauty of it, and this is where I think that this is where the complexity of life gets so damn beautiful, is that we suppress the thing so that we don't create the negative response. And then in suppressing it, we exaggerate the negative response because it comes out in this massive explosion.
Yeah.
And so that's the craziness in it.
It's like taking the lid off a boiling pot. You can't control how much water is gonna.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So if you left the lid off the whole time, then anger is going to come up just like joy, happiness, sadness, but it's going to boil out and it's never going to explode.
And it's never reactive. It's always
present.
Yeah, beautiful.
Yeah.
I had a similar experience like you had, beginning of last year or end of 2018 in Bali. But I won't get into that. But I could.
You won't get into that because the individuals or because of the.
Because I don't want to get into another story. But more I experienced how to use anger as a tool to penetrate bullshit.
Yeah. I've seen that if you can't utilize anger, you also don't get the benefit of what it brings you.
Yeah.
Because in some instances in my life, it's almost like it's another tool in the toolkit. Like if I try to facilitate you softly, I think you might be better off doing something else, Bambos. I think this would, if you'd consider this, like that may work, but then it also may not. And if you can't say, hey, damn it, what's going on? It's now 10th time we've had this discussion. What the hell is going on? Like if you can't allow that freedom of frustration and anger to come out, then basically you're not giving the gift to that other person, which might be the impetus they need to see through their own stuff. I see that creates some joy in you. What's going on?
I'm smiling because there's also the flip side of, I got a message this morning and someone gave me a little complaint.
Okay.
And instead of being reactive to the complaint, I really felt, I'm so happy you had that experience. and then she was like, laugh out loud. I'm going to write a poem about it now.
That is beautiful. Towards you or towards the situation?
Towards the situation and dedicate it to me. And I was like, bring it on. She's like, oh, shit.
No, use the reaction to create.
Yeah.
Oh, that is beautiful.
Where I can imagine 10 years ago when I could have reacted to that.
Oh, of course.
You shouldn't be feeling this. This is not good.
Yeah. I mean, it's taking stuff so personally. I mean, I see it immediately. It's that kind of one of these developmental steps that if someone says something and then you take it as your issue, your thing, you have to hold that. Your life is kind of at the whim of anyone you're speaking to at that moment. So if someone's angry at you and then you shudder or shut down, then you have a real problem on your hands because you actually almost have to separate yourself from the world because you can't tell people not to be angry. So now you have to move away from more and more people in order to be at peace.
Yeah. Like living in the mountains.
Yeah, it's the typical to be Buddha in the mountainside is easier than to be in the city.
Yeah. Okay. I'm wondering if we should close the door to not scare your wife.
Oh, you know what? You're right. She's got other calls going on. Please do that. Thank you for. I just realized my wife is on calls downstairs. I should have warned her that there might be activity that creates a tension in her environment. She's gonna have some explaining to do. What's going on upstairs? You live in an abusive home.
No, it's more for the people that she's working with.
Well, I mean,
she knows us.
Ronnie has she often comments after our calls, and her comment to me last time was, "Please put your glasses on or off because they look crazy when you put them on your head." That was her comment last time.
I love that. You have a stylist.
Yeah, she's helped me. I mean, I have just Cameron McDonald, who will also be on the show from
Change Sweater.
Yeah, Change Sweaters. He said basically I had the same sweater on, I think 3 days or something. He said, "Andy, please, you need to think about this." So let's go. Where do you want to go, Bam?
So let's you're well. Actually, I think we can both do it. But since I know the steps of this exercise,
okay,
and not that I remember them because I haven't done it for a long time, but I tend to embody them.
Yeah.
But I want you to tap into your anger.
Okay.
And just bring it on.
Okay.
And I don't want you to make it easy for me.
Yeah, but you say that, right? But you would say I have to create the anger because the anger isn't there, but I'll find something and role play it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's what we want.
Yeah, but you say make it easy. It's as if it's like as if it's always there and now finally it has a chance to come out or something, you know?
Well, it's more that as I'm guiding it,
okay, you
could give in to what I'm saying.
Oh, you want me to be unreasonable?
Stay unreasonable if you want, and we'll see how we navigate it.
Okay, this is going to be loud, okay? And for anyone that's not comfortable, like, please, now is the time to go somewhere else, because when we do this sort of work, it's really meant to be this it's meant to be this experience of just letting out this anger and like yeah. And I would hate if people watch it feeling like, oh my God, this is the scariest thing. Where did you learn emotional keto anyways?
Authentic relating.
Authentic relating. Yeah. Really? They go this far? I can't imagine. Well, when we yell like this, I don't know, the mics are going to go off the tune. So we might have to keep them like a little bit away from us here now.
Yeah. I'll let you know if I'm deafening.
Okay.
So just give me a second, just to give a bit of context. So let's say someone is really, really pissed at you and they're like, I'm angry. Like, it doesn't mean that in my life, every person that's fucking angry at me, that I'm going to sit down and do this. Like, there has to be a relationship that I'm investing in. And if I don't want anything from Andy, or he's not someone who's important for me, then I'm not going to put myself through this process. I don't feel for being authentic, relating with every person in the world who has a problem with me.
But would you say, do you believe right now I'm speaking because I don't have a problem with you? So as I'm doing this, I'm kind of creating this.
Yeah.
Okay. Because there's different ways of doing this. If I really had a problem with you, then we might even be having a different interaction.
Yeah.
Probably not this one, to be honest with you. There's trust involved if we're doing this, quite frankly.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
But we've gone through this before, and I really believed you. Like you actually gave tears in my eyes because you were touching parts of myself.
Yeah. So, well, I mean, I know how to be unreasonable because Dad was unreasonable, so I can channel my dad.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Cool. Bambos. Let me just see. Let's get this right. So I don't know what the fuck you're doing with your life. You're always doing this fucking ritual shit in the morning to compensate for your inability just to make peace now. So all you do is you stay in these random acts to kind of pretend like you're actually keeping yourself healthy when all you need to fucking do is just accept that you're okay right now. So you're fucking just doing bullshit, more and more and more of it, just to occupy your brain because you can't make peace. And if you could just make peace and just accept that it's all okay, you wouldn't need to do that bullshit. You're just distracting yourself. You haven't fucking figured out that life can be happy right now if you just got over doing shit. Fucking stay in character, please. Stay in character.
Okay. Fuck. This is an experiment going. Okay.
What came up for you just to help me? It wasn't raw enough for you? What was the issue?
Well, I could feel like in my body, I could feel your love for bringing that, but it wasn't personal. It wasn't towards you. So it was like, oh, he really cares about me, that he really wants to bring a point to me that I'm wasting my time with these rituals.
Okay, but and so you're telling me there's a different level, a different type of anger that would be different for you?
I've told you time and time again, like stop, like talk about a behavior which impacts you, because now it's not, it does nothing to do with you.
Okay, I'll try it again.
Yeah.
Okay. Bambos, I've told you 10 fucking times not to park the bike in front of the house. Like, you know that it creates tension because people see it there. They think it's okay to park there. And then they do it. And then you're not there to have to tell them, hey, move the bike. Hey, I don't want you parking here. And by doing it, you're basically telling the world, hey, it's okay to park here because if I can park here, you can park here.
Wow. I didn't realize, like, hearing the tone of your voice right now, because you have told me in a more gentle way, that I really pushed a boundary there.
Yeah, hell yeah. I mean, if I tell you, why do I have to tell you 3 times? Like, why shouldn't I just be able to tell you 1 time and then that's it?
Yeah. So let's time out.
Okay.
So while he's bringing me this, and I felt the responsibility that this is actually something that has happened several times. I'm taking a deep breath in, and I'm giving him the space to express. Like, there's no judgment that he shouldn't be expressing in this way. It's like, oh, I, Bambos, have taken an action which is observable, which impacts his well-being, and it does.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Like, hearing you speak, I really feel sorry for not taking you seriously, and I'd like to hear more, actually.
I mean, you'd like to hear more, but like, if I tell you more, is that going to change anything? Like, the bike should not be in front of the house because if it's there, it's permission. Every neighbor says, oh, if he parks there, obviously I can park there. So I don't know how else to communicate it to you so that it doesn't happen again.
No, this is perfect. Like, I realized you've told me 3 times, and I didn't take you fully seriously, and that's the truth. And now, yeah, the fact that I had to push you into the space of raising your voice at me makes me feel like shit. I feel responsible, and I feel now that I want to make sure that you feel heard.
Okay, now I can continue being irrational, which is what I was raised with.
Yeah.
But the question is, how far do you want to go with this? Do you want me to continue to be?
Well, let's just do that.
Okay.
Go for it.
So listen, if I've told you 3 times, then why would I for a moment think that it's going to change with the 4th? Like, on what planet does it like happen that a 4th time is now going to change when it hasn't happened the first 3 times?
I hear you. So that you're losing trust.
Mm-hmm.
So let's have an agreement that if it happens again, that there will be consequences, that you won't even have to get angry at me, that there's a clear consequence. What would feel good for you?
Okay, let's just say if it's parked outside, you give me 100 euros.
Yeah, I can feel that. and there's no discussion.
Yeah. Okay. Well, in that sense, I would, I would certainly trust because there's now a consequence, which I wasn't before.
Yeah.
Clearly, I felt heard, and I actually allowed whatever steam there was to be blown off, so that in the end, I don't even feel any more tension around the subject because I didn't actually hold it in and act as if it wasn't an issue.
Yeah, and I do want to make clear that there's no structure that I'm following. I'm just meeting him everywhere he is, and I could feel the fire. Like, what is the big deal? Come on now. Why are you making a big deal? It's just a fucking bike. It's on the street.
Nice.
It's a pavement. It's not your pavement.
Yeah.
Like what?
Yeah.
And all of a sudden we're not in connection anymore.
Yeah. Of course.
And
then the question would only be in this emotional keto, when does it become bullying? So when would what I'm doing with you now become bullying? And then you are backing down. So where do you get to meet what's important to you in that situation?
Well, step by step. So now you've actually said to me, now you feel that you're not feeling triggered anymore,
exactly.
Right? And I can just do a little check-in with you. Hey, listen, now that we know there's consequence, is there an openness for me to actually share why the bike was parked there?
Yeah, of course. I mean, I would do that in the sense of who I am, not the unreasonable person, but the unreasonable person is just going to be unreasonable. Yeah. You have no chance.
And I'm asking, if he says no, this was enough for me.
Yeah.
Like, I don't care, then that's that. But if he says yes, then I can definitely share without defending myself.
Yeah.
And trying to make myself right, but just share where I was coming from.
Okay. Yeah.
And right now I couldn't think of an excuse. So
yeah.
For the bullying,
yeah.
If I perceive you that you're being physically violent with me, I will back off. Like right now we're in close proximity just because of the setup, but it will be like, hey, listen, I love you.
Yeah.
And I'm scared.
Yeah. Okay.
Like, I don't want to get into physical fight with you. Like, I'm scared that we're going to hurt each other. So I don't want to abandon you by walking away, but I'm walking away because I'm looking after myself. And I want to make sure that when at least you are able and capable, we can have this conversation.
Okay.
Your anger is allowed, but I don't want to get into physical abuse.
When I was thinking bullying, I was actually thinking more along the lines of bullying, like emotional bullying. Like it could be that you really need to or want to park your bike there. So then how is it that, because then there's an aspect of self-sacrifice. So when do you get to, like, do you just say, okay, I just take the consequence? If he's angry, because imagine if someone is angry in a relationship, basically that person would rule through anger.
Yeah.
If there wasn't the ability to interact around it. So how do you navigate that? Because that's a kind of an interesting question.
Well, the thing that comes to me is the classic wife beater.
Okay.
Who's always beating and shouting, and then how do we navigate that?
Yeah.
I need to feel into that.
Well, I mean,
or actually,
I know how I navigate it, but I left it as an open question. Like I navigated, by the way, I don't know if we're losing, we can come back to sort of, I navigated by having a clear no. So I know that if I don't have a no, then basically all behavior is acceptable.
Yeah.
So if I don't have a clear no, I don't gauge what I do or don't accept as behavior. And the no isn't towards the person, it's towards the behavior. So I just don't accept that behavior in my life. So basically that's it.
Yeah. And we've actually done a talk on no, and there's always a consequence with no.
It's a helpless no, of course, because you can't decide for another person what they're going to do. You can only decide what works for you or doesn't work for you.
Or you could still get beaten up if you say no.
Oh, true. I mean, now we're talking about a whole nother no, right? But that would be some degree of, I would say, codependency.
Yeah.
Somehow I'm not able to leave them because I feel dependent on them, of course. Yeah. I guess when we're working, and I reiterate, this is how we've navigated it. It's not how anyone else. We're not clinically certified to discuss it in terms of how others can, but how I have. And the way I've navigated it, and it took some time. I had to say, I'm willing to lose anyone in my life who doesn't at least hold true to these things that are important to me. And I'm not going to blame them for it.
Beautiful.
Because that's my decision. We all get to decide who and what we want in our lives and what we do, but what we can't decide for another person is what they want for themselves. They get to decide that. Yeah, which is why I'm always talking in my own life. Is there a match? Like, is there a match with what I am and who I want to be and where I want to be with people and where you want to be? Because if there's a match, then we should be together. But why would we force it if that match isn't there? Yeah, which often happens. And you see what the repercussions of that are. Yeah, a lot of anger and frustration. Yeah.
How are you right now?
I'm great. I'm looking, wondering if there's any questions out there, which I don't see any.
No.
I kind of thought that there would be more activity around this subject because it's so active in so many people. I really thought that anger was going to be something that like kind of, yeah, that's beautiful. Julia Thompson, a sweetheart from the UK. Facing the loss is key. Yeah. That's one of these weird conundrums, is that when we really know what we want, when we have a clear no, we don't want this, and a clear yes, we're really free. Because now, Case, my mentor, and I'll say this quote often, he would often say, freedom is the absence of choice. Freedom is the absence of choice. Yeah.
I can feel that.
Yeah. And then, because in some ways, when you already know what you are say no to in your life, and you have a clear yes, basically you just, wow. So Julia shares the anger was a level 6 on level what I experienced. Julia, I was even angry to let whatever come out. I would say I might have when we did this exercise, I went much further in the anger, but I also felt more safe. I have to also say, because I didn't have an audience that was there to potentially judge it out of context.
Yeah.
So thank you, Julia. And I'm sorry you had to go through that. Or maybe I'm not sorry, because obviously you became a much stronger woman through it, I'm sure.
Well, I think you both did.
Yeah, we both did. I actually, it's funny, if you look back, you can really see how these experiences shape us in ways that make us so much stronger that it's hard to ever look back and say, wow, that was bad. It was more like, oh, wow, apparently that's what I needed to go through to get here.
Yeah.
And Julie also was a big lover of Case, my mentor, and he does live on.
Well, if you think of our fathers,
yeah,
they did gift us with where we are now.
Yeah, for sure.
Like, in general, I feel pretty confident in being there for people who are not capable of dealing with anger.
Yeah.
Or expressing.
Yeah.
And yesterday I was in the Wester Park with a friend.
Okay.
And she just felt so choked here that her incapacity to express anger was hurting her body physically.
Wow.
So I was with her for an hour, and she was really massaging her intestines and like purging and shouting. And you had cyclists going up and looking at us, but I'm like, keep on going, keep on going.
Yeah, because that's where when I get, I think it's more sadness. I feel that I get sadness in my throat, like I hold in my throat when I get sad. The anger probably, and similarly, I guess. I haven't really thought about the anger. Sadness is always easier for me because I'm more quiet. So I'm watching a movie and I feel the pain, but I'm not crying. And then I feel my throat feel like it's going to explode.
Yeah, the throat is normally inability to fully express what's alive for you in the moment.
Yeah, and that's what it is, actually.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like when I watch a really sad movie with someone who's died, that there's very tear-jerking moments, then oftentimes I'll go back to my own pain, but I won't necessarily allow it to be experienced. Otherwise, they're just too uncomfortable. Yeah. It has been, at least. Now I feel far more grounded in it, but certainly most of my life, I left sad movies with a sore throat. Yeah. So
we have 7 minutes, Andy.
7 minutes.
How do you want to spend the last 7 minutes?
I'd love to move maybe a little bit into where anger became what I had to go through to make peace with the anger, and maybe you.
Yeah.
I went through it already a bit. I didn't hear as much of you, how you made peace with the anger. Like you mentioned who helped you in it, but not how you made peace with it. Or if it is even at peace, that's an assumption in itself. Like, how was it? How did you make peace with the anger in you?
It was...
it's more recent than mine, I guess.
Right? Yeah, it was... I wouldn't say it's one event. It was our one of our first conversations in your kitchen, and it was a moment where I didn't see anger as a problem, or I also didn't see violence as a problem.
Yeah, I remember that.
And you offered to give me your time and support, and if I would go into anger or violence, that the relationship would be over.
I think I said violence. I wasn't necessarily problem with
Violence.
anger. Violence would be
Yeah,
different.
but
to me.
I back then I couldn't differentiate.
Got it. Yeah.
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 And then there was another moment when I got into my first relationship, and you actually told me, if you're in this relationship, you cannot abandon. Like, there's no fight or flight, which was also fueled with anger.
Yep.
And what happened when I didn't allow myself to flight or fight, like when he said that to me, I literally had to stay with what, like, the discovery of what was behind the fight or flight, which was a lot of tears.
Yeah, you cried for like a week.
What do you mean a week, man?
It was
Like the whole year of the relationship. Like, I cried, and I would send videos to him to show him like I was in pain. And eventually it was with Joanne Lavasio where we did core energetics.
Yeah, you moved through so much.
And I got to really express it and embrace it.
Yeah.
And laugh. Like, after that, like, you talk about a workshop where you come out as a different person and you don't relive it. The workshop from Joanne really, I never went back.
Yeah.
But I'm sure it was the buildup of everything that I had lived until that point. I never want to say that you go to this workshop.
Any one thing. Yeah, exactly. It's always a bit of everything you've ever done. There was something that came in from Merck that I wanted to look at.
Yeah.
It was long. So
do you think that who does not have these
possessions,
things and possessions, and does not have anything?
Not money, no car, no house, no wife, even food, that they suffer to bring food, how depressed this life is. But this person, when he goes to sleep, is happy and dreams come true, but is not realized as a reality, as he is not afraid to lose it because he has nothing to lose. Because he has nothing to lose, because he has nothing to lose. No such life, no urgent, which has made the rich and the... Basically, it sounds like he's written a song. And it was interesting that Merck writes this, because I think you hear me often sing the song, freedom's just another word for nothing left to lose.
Yeah.
And I often, when I went through my own kind of, call it spiritual or whatever that journey would be, I sold everything I owned and I lived in the attic space. No running water, no toilet, no electricity or heating. And I was so happy. And I remember people looking down on me at that time and saying, wow, you really shifted from being this director of a computer company to being this, homeless man.
Yeah.
And I realized I am so happy.
I think you used the words, I'm fucking free.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I don't think, it would be too easy to say these things don't bring comforts. Like, that would just be way too easy. But it would also be, ignorant to think that we're going to be happy through whatever we possess. Right? I think there was this study done that everyone sort of cites that in order for somebody to be happy, they have to earn $55,000 a year, and anything above that doesn't make them any more happy. With some number in that range.
Nice.
So yeah, I do believe that to some degree we do have some degree of capacity to find peace with whatever we are. The Viktor Frankl kind of, writing the book in the concentration camp on meaning.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I love myself with and without money.
Yeah. And that's we'll have that discussion on another show. We'll do money as a full hour as well. We're coming up on a minute. Anyway, you'd like to close up in our last remaining moments on this session?
I feel very complete.
Yeah.
For those of you, I'd like to just mention the authentic relating.
Yeah.
Every Wednesday and Friday, if you do want to, we don't touch anger. Like I said, it's something that I feel needs to be, we need a half a day workshop, if not a full day. And I do want to do it in person. But in general, I hold space for connection games every Wednesday and Friday. If you're interested, just comment below.
Nice.
And
And
I'll give you more information.
Yeah, and we just decided now every so often we'll at least share what we're doing. This is the book, The Last Letter. If you haven't read it, it's a very good read. It's a story of basically how I learned how to make peace with anger as well as a lot of other emotions in my life. Yeah. And the next book, The Wounded Healer, will be coming out July 20th, which is the story of basically the book tour I did through the U.S., sharing the Last Letter Act practice. Yeah. So that's it for the hour.
That's it for the hour.
Thank you for choosing this topic. I had a feeling it was going to be. I mean, we kind of have to do like kind of this sort of
social distancing hug.
It's not really quite appropriate, but that's okay. Yeah, it was really great to share this with people. I mean, Bambos and I would normally have these conversations not on camera. So in some ways, we're inviting people to join us in the talks we'd just be having anyways.
I think that's how these talks started.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The fact we brought other people in was just a random act of, if we're going to do this every day, then let's make it, interesting.
Yeah. And see if someone out there benefits, then yippee-yay.
Yeah. Thank you for joining. Yeah. All the best to everyone. Yeah.
Adios, everyone. Bye-bye.
Bye.